to be talking about my Disney College Program journey, if you will, from the day I applied to the day I got accepted and kind of the steps afterwards. So if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about that, go on and keep on watching. Alrighty, a little bit of background about myself. My name is Jalen. I am from Tucson, Arizona, but I moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado, in September of 2018. I was 19 at the time. I attend Arizona State University through Starbucks' College Achievement Program. I've worked at the company for 4 years. I started when I was 16 and I stopped about 2 weeks before my 21st birthday. That's all we're gonna go into detail about that. But the College Achievement Program is something that I have always been interested in because I've always been passionate about Disney and the company and making magic, as I'm sure most of the people who are watching this are. So after I stopped working at Starbucks, I was still enrolled in classes at Arizona State University, which is one of the requirements for the Disney College Program. It was the first time in my life really where I, kind of didn't have any type of obligations other than school, which I was doing from home because I'm an online student. So I didn't really have any obligations, and I felt like it would be, a really great time to go ahead and take the leap and apply for something that I've always wanted to do. So I was talking to my friend Alicia, who started working at Disneyland Resort as a CP a couple years ago, actually. And, she was like, go ahead, just apply, you never know, why not? What else are you doing? And I was like, oh my God, Alicia, you're so right. And so that day, it was actually the last day to put in applications. I don't remember exactly what day it was, sorry, but it was the last day to put in applications for Disneyland Resort. Walt Disney World was still accepting for a couple more weeks, but I put in my application the last day that Disneyland Resort was accepting applications. I really wanted to work at Disneyland Resort just because I'm from Arizona, which is right next to California. I've visited Disneyland and California Adventure more times than I can count. I have so many friends who live in California. Obviously I have friends who work in Disneyland, and I just thought it would be a really awesome opportunity to get to work with them. But obviously me procrastinating and waiting until the very last day Disneyland was accepting applications didn't work out well, but we'll get to that. So I went ahead and sent in my application, thought nothing of it. I was like, okay, I applied, I put my 4-year Starbucks experience, I was a supervisor, I have my school experience. So, hopefully the recruiters saw something and, wanted to go ahead and offer me a WBI, which is a web-based interview. I was really surprised because I think it was 13 minutes later, I got an email for my WBI, and I was like, wow, okay, cool. So I went ahead and did my web-based interview. It took about 40 minutes. It's really super easy. I've had to do something like this before when I worked at the movie theater. It's kind of just like an assessment, kind of gauging your responses to certain situations and things like that. They want to see how consistent you can be. So a lot of the questions are very repetitive. They're asking you the same thing over and over, except in different ways to kind of gauge how consistent you are. And obviously they're still looking for the right answers, if you will. But it was really easy. I passed, the message said something along the lines of, we think you would be an excellent candidate. You'll receive an email with steps on how to move forward. So I was like, cool, awesome. I passed my web-based interview. At the time, I hadn't watched any college program videos, so I didn't know how long I should be expecting, what the next step was. I know it sounds crappy, but a couple minutes later, I, received a link, and it was okay, we want to offer you a phone interview. Go to this website and schedule your phone interview. I went on the website, and the only time that I could schedule was the very next day. So I thought that was kind of odd. I didn't really get much of a choice. There wasn't anything later in the week or past that. It was just the very next day. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I went ahead and scheduled my phone interview for February 27th. I think my interview was at 10:45 a.m. So that kind of completed the application process. It was really fast, which I was not expecting. I sent my application, And then not even 15 minutes later, I received my web-based interview. And then about 40 minutes later, when I finished my web-based interview, I was able to schedule my phone interview for the very next day. So after I scheduled my phone interview, I decided to go ahead and spend the night watching DCP videos. This is the first time that I had kind of decided to delve into YouTube and see what resources were available to me. I found this extremely helpful, especially with the phone interview. The phone interview is what I was most nervous about because this is kind of the last step before a decision is made. So I was extremely nervous, but you know, watching YouTube videos really helped me. So I highly recommend it if you plan on applying for the Disney College program in the future. There are people who actually record the entire phone call with their recruiter and post it. And I didn't know that that was a thing or that that was an option. So I didn't do that for my channel, unfortunately, because I didn't decide that I wanted to even make a channel until I was accepted. So sorry. What's really nice about these videos is that it takes you from the start to the finish of the phone interview and it helps you prepare. So a lot of tips that I received from those videos included making a spreadsheet on your laptop the night before your interview. I went ahead and listed all of the roles that I expressed interest in. So I started with my high interest to my moderate interest to my low interest, and kind of typed out the responsibilities in that role, etc. What do I want to say? So through watching these YouTube videos, I was actually able to attach questions that recruiters had asked the candidate in the video to that role. And so I kind of had, you know, bullet points of questions that I might be asked, and I decided to prepare guidelines for those questions. So I don't recommend, you know, answering the question in full and like reading from a script, if you will, but just setting yourself guidelines so you have talking points and things like that, I found really helpful. Anyways, the big day finally came. I woke up, I decided to make myself breakfast, take a shower. So I was feeling awake and ready. You know, it's not like I had just rolled out of bed. I wanted to be prepared. I wanted my body to feel prepared. The recruiter can call you anywhere from, I think it's, don't quote me on this, please. I think it's anywhere from 15 minutes early to 15 minutes late. So you kind of want to set aside an hour block for your interview where, you know, you can just be, you know, by yourself, you can be prepared, you can have a quiet space, and you can really focus on your interview. So my recruiter actually called right on time, which was super awesome. So I started my interview right at 10:45. It was about a 35 to 40 minute conversation. She said it was only supposed to take 20, but we ended up talking a lot, which is super awesome. So kind of the interview starts very basic, you know, confirming your information, your work history, and then they ask about the Disney look, and they give you a chance to, you know, disclose any piercings and body modifications that you may have. I have my nose pierced as well as my septum, and I do have tattoos. So they kind of just take note of where those tattoos are, you know, what piercings you have, and explain to you that, you know, depending on where your tattoos are, you may have to cover them or alter your costume. They ask if that's okay, to which I answered, of course. You know, I just have a little ghost on my arm right here. So it's nothing too crazy. And, you know, she expressed to me that I would have to take out both of my nose piercings, which I'm not bothered by. And then it kind of moves into the actual interview questions. So this is where my spreadsheet really came in handy. I was asked questions about every single role that I expressed interest in. My recruiter ended up taking me in order from my high interest to my low interest roles. She asked me questions about every single one. Just one question, kind of to feel out, I'm assuming, if you would be a good fit or not. So my top interests were character performer and character attendant, as well as attractions. So those were my top three. My recruiter ended up asking me questions about those first because they were my high interest. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to attend any character performer auditions before my program started. I really wish I did, but I didn't, unfortunately. So we kind of moved on from character performer after she found out that I wasn't able to make any auditions. She also informed me that there were no character attendant roles at Walt Disney World, and that a lot of the roles that I had expressed interest in were actually full at Disneyland. And so she asked me if switching my preference to Walt Disney World would be something that I was interested in. Originally, my plan was to apply for Disneyland Resort because that's what I was most familiar with. That's where I had the most friends and family. But I knew that I really wanted this opportunity, so I went ahead and told her that Walt Disney World would be an excellent fit. I'd be excited either way. So she kind of tailored the questions to Walt Disney World, if that makes sense. Like, we kind of moved into the roles that were only offered at Walt Disney World, because there is a difference of what you can do at Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World. So she started asking me questions about Walt Disney World after we established that moving forward, that would be my preference. Character attending was full at Walt Disney World. So we moved on to attractions. She asked me a question about attractions. I answered it. I don't know. And then she moved into questions about my lower interest and my moderate interest. So my moderate interest was photo pass and recreational rides. And then my low interest was quick service food and beverage. That was kind of my absolute fallback, just because I had worked at Starbucks for 4 years. Before that, I had worked in a movie theater for 2 years. And so I was really kind of over like dealing with food and things like that. But, you know, obviously, if I would have been offered that role, I would have been thrilled to take it. Anyway, flash forward. At the very end of your interview, you have the opportunity to go ahead and ask your recruiter any questions that you have, whether it be about the program or them. This was a really good opportunity to get my recruiter to open up about herself. So I asked her how her Disney journey began and what the company means to her now. And it was a really awesome conversation. She talked about her story for about 10 minutes, and I feel like that's the point where we really connected. So I highly recommend asking your recruiter a question about themselves that gets them talking about their journey and gets them excited to, you know, start the magic with someone else. So that is it on the interview. It was a very quick 2-day process from first applying to the program to having my phone interview. So after that, it kind of became a waiting game, and let me tell you, it is the most anxiety rattling, shaking, jigging, boogieing thing literally ever. Oh my God, it was horrible. I just don't like waiting, especially for something that I really, 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 really want. So I can't even tell you. Every single morning, the first thing I did was check my email, check my email, check my email, check my email. And throughout the day, I was checking my email like 25 times. I don't recommend that because it'll drive you crazy. But I ended up watching YouTube videos where people started talking about the recruiters having Twitter pages. So I followed Recruiter Christy, and she actually announced every time they were going to be doing an acceptance wave for both Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World. So I found this very helpful. I just turned on her post notifications on Twitter and kind of tried to relax on checking my email so much. I just waited for her to go ahead and tweet when they were going to do a wave. I waited, tried to breathe through it, and refreshed my email like twice a day instead of 20 times a day. Then coronavirus hit. It was announced that both Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World were going to be closing due to coronavirus. No one knew at the time how this was going to affect CPs, employees, vacations, you know, anything, annual passes. So it kind of became another waiting game. Fortunately, you know, Walt Disney World and Disneyland Resort decided to go ahead and close down to protect the health of the park, the employees, and most importantly, the guests. They decided to really put safety at the forefront, which is very admirable, especially for such a big company like Disney. Later in the week, it came out that all current CPs were gonna be sent home. And I can't even imagine, literally cannot imagine being in the middle of your program. Some people, it was the beginning of the program. Some people it was the middle, some people it was the end. You know, being like actively in your program and then being told that like it's being marked as complete and you have to go home. I could not imagine. I felt horrible. When it first happened, Disney didn't know if they were gonna, have a way for CPs to come back or express interest in maybe coming back. I was hoping that, current CPs who were having their program marked as complete would have the opportunity to come back and have priority. So later that did end up happening. There is a survey that current CPs who were marked as complete could take that allowed them to express interest in coming back to another program. So that was taken care of, which is awesome. But I didn't know where that left my application because, Disney was so busy dealing with the current CPs and all the other full-time employees, where I didn't really know like where I was in that mix or what it meant for my application. Luckily, I had Christy's notifications turned on. She ended up replying to a tweet where someone asked the questions that I was too scared to ask because I didn't want to be a pain. I don't know. But I'm glad someone asked. But someone ended up asking, and she said that all applicants who were still in consideration were not affected. Not only did it come out that CPs could express interest in coming back and have priority, but it also clarified that my program and my consideration were not affected. It went back to a waiting game because I realized like I'm still in consideration. Monday, March 16th rolled around, and what's super exciting and kind of spooky is I had transitioned away from refreshing my email to kind of just waiting for Christy to tweet. At the time, Christy was not tweeting that they were doing waves of acceptance, which was understandable. I figured the process would take a lot longer. However, I decided to check my email like right when I woke up, just because my friend Shelby had spent the night with me the night before, and we kind of woke up late, and I decided to check my email, and I saw it said Disney College Program. There was a little colon, and it said congrats, and I lost it. Like, I kid you not, I was laying down and I like rose from the dead and like started crying, and she was like, "What?" And I started reading it, and she was like, "Stop crying." And I was like, oh my God, freaking out. So it was really super exciting to get my acceptance. At the time, my offer was not loading in my Disney dashboard. It was driving me nuts. I tried to load it so many times that I got locked out of my account. So that was even worse. Your offer letter expresses which role you were offered, as well as gives you the opportunity to move forward in the process. So I was locked out of my account. All they said was to wait to try again. So I waited. Shelby and I got up. I was freaking out. I called my mom. I told her, and I wanted to wait until I had more information to tell the rest of my family back in Arizona. So Shelby and I went to Dutch Bros. We got some coffee. We got a little bit of food. We kind of waited around, and then I decided to try my account again. It let me in, thank God. And I was offered the role of attractions, which was my top role. So I'm super thrilled that I was extended an offer. After you decide whether or not you'd like to accept or decline your role, you are sent a separate email after you accept, and that links you to the next steps, which are paying program fees. It's about $400 in program fees that my mom helped me with. Thank you, Mom. I'm gonna pay her back, I swear. But you pay your program fees, and then you're sent a separate email where you are able to pick your program dates. So I am officially a Walt Disney World cast member from May 11th to January 7th, working in attractions. I am so excited for this opportunity, and I thank you all for sitting through my blab. If you did, thank you. I know it's not exciting. I'm gonna try to spice it up with some editing, but I don't know how that's gonna go. Anyway, thank you all so much for, joining me and being on this journey with me. I am going to update my channel. I promise. I'll probably do a location reveal once I receive my itinerary. I'm super excited to see what attraction I will be at. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I have never been to Walt Disney World. So I could be in any of the parks, which I'm super excited for. I'm sure since it's my first experience, I'm going to fall in love. I'm going to love where I'm at no matter what. And I always hear that the college program is what you make it, and I plan to make it the best experience of my life. So I'm super excited, and I thank you all for listening to me blab, and I will definitely keep you guys updated. If there's any questions you might have, go ahead and comment down below. If there's any videos you want me to cover more in depth about the process or anything like that, go ahead and comment that down below. Eventually I will have an Instagram set up. I don't know if that is gonna happen before I post this video, but if it does, it'll be linked. Well, I don't know. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.